All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Great to see you here. I'm excited to introduce our panel of esteemed speakers. All of them are longtime Stellar partners and anchors, and we'll talk a little bit more about what anchors actually means. But before we do that, I'd love if you guys could spend a couple minutes introducing yourselves, what your companies do, what they do on Stellar, and then we can dive in. Jack?
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Jack Saraco. I lead business development and partnerships in Settle Network. We are one of the largest fiat to crypto on-ramp services in Latin America. We are anchors, issuing anchors and non-issuing anchor for the Stellar development blockchain. We're in Argentina, Brazil, with ARST and BRLT respectively, and we help the entire soon DeFi community on Stellar and all the dApp community as an on-ramp and off-ramp.
Hi, my name is Alla. I'm CEO of Tempo France, and I'm very excited to be here with you to present Tempo France, which is the only and the one European anchor of Stellar for cross-border payments. So Tempo France, in fact, was the first money remittance company which applied the blockchain solutions. Company founded in 2008, but our strategy drastically changed since we became a part of the Stellar ecosystem. During the last 12 months, the paradigm of our company changed as well. And currently we are working to become a worldwide Tempo group with 4 legal entities in France, Canada, Cyprus, and Kazakhstan, and with our own IT development hub, which is based also on Stellar blockchain. So we are 140 employees all around the world, hold 3 licenses, and extended our geographical presence. But still, money remittance, it's our primary strategy, with the main corridors to Philippines, to Ukraine, and to West Africa, in particular in Nigeria. Thanks to the blockchain solution, we are happy and able to provide to our customer fast and low price payments all around the world.
Hello?
Oh. Take this.
Hello. Oh, wow. Hey, everybody. I'm Yanni Gennaro, CEO and co-founder of Wire. We're super excited. We just recently became an anchor about a year and a half ago, but it seems like Wire and Stellar are extremely aligned. Wire's for international wires, when we created the name. So our history has been in cross-border payments. We started the company in 2012, and what we do is we're effectively a Stripe for crypto. We provide APIs for developers to interact with crypto, build crypto apps. So whether you're a crypto remittance application, a crypto wallet, we have really nice APIs to do on-ramps, off-ramps, custodial services, liquidity services, and make it super simple for people to launch applications all over the world. Our primary focus is in the US, but we have a lot of networks that we can pay out to globally.
Great. So thank you, everybody. So we're talking about anchors today. Anchor is a very Stellar-specific word. And so for those of you who are not super familiar with what we mean by anchor, it's really a fiat to crypto on and off ramp. And those fall into 2 primary categories in the Stellar ecosystem. One is for cross-border payments. So Tempo France is a great example of this. They provide cross-border payment services where a customer that wants to send money, from Europe to Nigeria, for example, whether it's a person or a business, Tempo will be the on-ramp that takes their fiat, converts it into crypto onto Stellar, and then sends it out through another anchor on the other side. So that's an example of a cross-border payments anchor. The other type of anchor is a fiat on and off ramp that provides services to other apps. So that's an example of Settle Network, or Wire is an example of this, where they might provide, in the case of Settle, a fiat to crypto on and off ramp for exchanges in Latin America so that they can serve local customers that have Argentinian pesos in their bank account. So from the Stellar perspective, high level, it's really doing the same thing, which is this super, super critical piece of infrastructure that bridges the fiat traditional banking system to Stellar and vice versa. And we've seen a big proliferation of players in this space in the past couple of years especially. Some of them are attracting massive valuations in the space, and so it's a very exciting part of the industry to play in. I'd love if you could just tell the audience a little bit about what attracted you to the space, how you ended up operating a business in this particular niche of payments and crypto.
For sure. I'll start. So 2018, we started Settle. At that point in time, we saw a need for common people that were interested in crypto to be able to deposit fiat currency and be able to receive crypto. At that point in time, there were very few on-ramps, none in Latin America, very few growing at an international rate. And we saw there was a huge market of the possibility of the new era of crypto being adopted and how the adoption was going to go through, what was the means of payment, who was the first to start selling this crypto asset. We saw an opportunity there on the market, and we developed the licensing, the infrastructure, the local banking rails in order to achieve the possibility to enable the local people to deposit their own fiat currency and be able to receive crypto wherever they wanted in whichever exchange and whichever blockchain they needed. And the first thing that every single startup needs at some point in time is to receive fiat transactions or to receive crypto from a non-crypto user. Because right now the crypto user or the crypto ecosystem was very small, and you needed to give crypto to someone in order to start playing on your own exchange, dApp, or whichever service you were trying to provide. So yeah, that's how we started, and that's the service that we provide.
Ella?
In fact, what our customer wants, they want to have fast transaction, secure transaction, and low-cost transaction, which unfortunately I think the traditional money remittance companies quite challenging in this target. So, and for Tempo, thanks to this blockchain solution, which we applied in 2018 with development our own first European stablecoin EURT, we're able to launch and to provide the new generation of money remittance business. And currently, thanks to this blockchain solution, which is built on Stellar, with stablecoin pre-financing, we are able to provide instant and secure payments all over the world. So, and we see that it's quite successful because it goes fast, secure, and transparent. So, it's a future.
Yeah, for Wire, I think it was. So we've been in the space for a bit of time. So we've been in the space since 2012, and we made every single mistake that we possibly could, from getting bank accounts getting shut down in different countries, trying to navigate the regulatory space. And when in 2018, after launching in different countries, getting all this infrastructure built out, we came to the realization that if we're really serious about crypto and if we really want to get billions and billions of people in the space, we need to make it really damn easy for every single developer to get access to this really complex infrastructure. And, you know, and it was through our mistakes that we've made and our like hardship and like getting shut down that we came to this realization. So I think that we pivoted 100% in trying to make it super easy. We have a lot of work to do. It's still very, I think, you know, how do you get API keys and still be able to be fully compliant and send money all over the planet is a really, really hard thing to build out, but that we're continuing to strive for that. So that's our obsession with like, hey, using blockchain and making it easier for people to be able to move funds all around the planet. It came from our obsession, really.
That makes a lot of sense. So for anchors that provide on and off ramps to exchanges and wallets, you know, especially Settle and Wire, what are the things that your customers care about? What are important to them when they're evaluating different options for on and off ramps?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is that we primarily focus on 0 to 1 apps. So if you're, you know, it's from like if you're just getting started and you want to get API keys and start building, for a really long time, Wire is a really good place to actually just get those API keys and start building immediately. So a lot of that we're really good at just educating, because a lot of people want to build an amazing application, but they're trying to navigate the space and just like understand, hey, you have to have a business registration. You maybe aren't allowed to custodial your own funds because then you're going to run into like regulatory issues. So a lot of the stuff that we do up front is education. And I think that, obviously pricing, speed of transaction, payment methods are all really important, but just providing a good educational experience for people is I think Wire's really strong suit. We have a lot of payment experience in the team, and we're able to educate a lot of partners on that.
Yeah, interesting. So this is education not for end users, but the developers of the wallets and platforms that you're targeting.
Yeah, 100%. Wallets have everybody's an entrepreneur, right? And they come in and they want to change the world. And then you start opening the curtain on financial regulatory system. And you're like, oh, I don't want to touch that. And then you close it up and you're like, oh, let's go talk to Wire. And then we start educating. And I bet a lot of people on this panel as well do a lot of that education.
Absolutely. Most of the conversations go around licensing, what accounts they need, what type of businesses they have to set up. Most are super interested in the KYC section, why we do the KYC. No one wants to do the KYC for them. That's another very important point. One of the most things they see is pricing, volume, the possibility of running high volume transactions through as an on-ramp, the easiness to connect. That's something very important Yanni mentioned, is everyone's starting off. Everyone wants a very clear API connection, easy to use, fast, reliable, and that doesn't take months to do. And being able to provide that to the different companies that integrate to us, educating along the way, providing a full 24/7 support with a tech team is something that makes those interactions with the connections reliable, and the connection from Settle with a company a very good partnership and bond together.
Makes sense. Thank you. What about, Ala, for cross-border payments? You serve both individual retail users as well as businesses. What do your customers care about? Are the criteria for retail users different from businesses, or is it all the same at the end of the day?
In both cases, we're talking about the money of our customers. And I think that in global point of view, all customers care about price of transaction, speed of transaction, and transparency. And of course, with the current method, we see that the infrastructure is changing drastically. And in fact, it's more challenging for us than for our customers, because many fintechs currently is facing the challenge with regulatory risk and compliance. And we have to be very patient, because it's very challenging when you try to present the cutting-edge technology to the very conservative regulatory machine to prove them that it's the nearest future, that people who paid by check just 50 years ago currently do the digital transfer between the wallets. And I think that that's why we are here. We need to be patient. We need to be accurate and strong to continue to educate not only our customers but our regulatory system that the future is here, in fact. So
I can imagine that's a dynamic and ever-changing endeavor. So another dimension on which our anchor partners here differ a little bit from one another is that two of them are not only anchors but also issuers. So Settle Network, for example, issues stablecoins representing South American currencies. Tempo France issues Euro-T, which is a Euro stablecoin. Can you tell us a little bit about the decision that went into issuing your own asset on Stellar? How do you use it? What use cases does it enable for you?
Absolutely. So we started the ARST, that's the Argentinian peso stablecoin, and the Brazilian real stablecoin back in 2019. We pictured initially that the stablecoins were going to be used mostly for remittance. There's a very huge movement of funds between Argentina and Brazil constantly, so we saw the opportunity of moving funds all around, using the Stellar DEX as the most efficient way to move, to swap those assets. Many wallets within the ecosystem started adopting them. I'd say that the biggest right now is Virant, that is using the ARST, particularly in Argentina, and growing a lot their user base and the user acquisition. Most of the real use case is stop using fiat physical bills and start using crypto ARST as a value one-to-one, which you can buy coffee, you can buy whatever you want with that same stablecoin asset, basically. The possibility of everyone sees the world as USDC or USDT paired. You can see Bitcoin or the largest cryptos. Regionally, I think that every single country is going to start having more and more stablecoins in order to move funds around, which is thousands more efficient than the current situation. And that's, I think in my view, that's what's going to lead the adoption of every single day user when they don't know that they're paying through a stablecoin network or through a blockchain network, but they are paying their money through a digital currency.
I love that vision. I think we're very much aligned with that. Ala, what about Tempo? How do you use EuroT? What influenced the decision to issue that asset?
Yes, as a payment institution, we also were looking for the better solution and customer offer. As far as we work not only with the private individuals but with businesses as well, we realized that in fact the SWIFT payment, for example, between African continent and Europe takes too much time. So, and in order to facilitate and to the payment and to decrease the timing, so the solution with EuroT comes to our tables. And in fact, instead of 5 days of SWIFT payment, for example, with our Nigerian partners, we provide the timing for the transaction less than a few minutes. And in plus, at that time in 2018, the niche for European stablecoin was free. So we were the first one, and like that. Yeah.
Well, we're happy to have you as a Euro stablecoin issuer on Stellar. Yanni, are we going to see a wire-issued stablecoin coming anytime soon, or is that not part of the plan?
We're completely agnostic. I don't think we'll. Yeah, maybe. Actually, yeah. Never say never.
Never say never. Exactly. Let's talk about payment methods real quick. Everybody in this room probably has a credit card or 5 in their pocket. So, with that in mind, do local payment methods matter? Is credit debit card enough, or is it important for your businesses to support local payment methods in the various jurisdictions that you operate in?
I guess it's very important. So despite the globalization and the unification of payment methods, still local payments are crucial and play primary role. For example, the best example for Tempo, that we are working with a very well-known Nigerian partner, and we provide to our community the payouts in local currencies, which is quite rare. So, and thanks to this collaboration, so we became much more closer to our clients and provide the unique solution with our offer. The other example, it's our Ukrainian corridor, which we launched just a few months ago. So thanks to the blockchain and local partnership and payment methods, we are able to provide the payments within the few seconds directly to the local cards in the local currencies, hryvnia. So I think it's very important.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. It's not just like local payment methods. It's also the entire stack of the payment orchestration behind the scenes. So it's, even for cards, right, it makes sense to actually open up local entities or work with other payment partners in local jurisdictions, because, if you're processing a card from the U.S. or you're acquiring from the U.S. and you're processing in Mexico, you won't see a lot of payment approvals in that sort of jurisdiction. So it's setting up the whole infrastructure globally to actually do the payment orchestration to have high approval rates. So it's a very complex behind the scenes operation, but local payment methods matter, and then also the local entity matters as well. And
yeah, absolutely. Something that happens very particular to Argentina is that the buying crypto with cards is banned from the central bank. So having local banking rails is the only method for people to be able to buy them. Obviously, everyone's used to buying through banking rails, and that's the only way possible right now. So it's like 100% needed to have your own rails or your own domestic infrastructure.
So sticking on the subject, let's talk about fees. Crypto and blockchain heralds a lot of efficiencies. Transactions are cheap, especially on a platform like Stellar and many others. But when the on and off ramps are very expensive, that can take away the efficiency that crypto brings to the table. If you want to go buy Bitcoin on many platforms right now, you might end up paying 7% up to 10% to make your transaction. Why are fees high, and what will it take to get them down?
I think it's going to be a race to the bottom on fees in general. You've seen that in every single jurisdiction. Like fees used to be 10% when you're processing credit cards in Mexico. Now they're down to like reasonable amounts. So I think that it's a natural progression. When you have more competition or when you have more players coming into the space, which more are coming, and that's really good for end user experience, fees are going to decrease. So I think that you started off, like they'll argue, it is an inherently high risk transaction. Exchanging cash for credit is a very complex thing, and doing it immediately is very expensive, right? You sit on a 90-day chargeback risk, so there's a fraud inherent risk in there. Then there's fees from the interchange. Then there's like high risk processing. It's a 6051 MCC code. So there's a lot going back behind the scenes for selling crypto with credit. And it's just expensive. And over time, that'll get cheaper and cheaper. We've already seen it.
Something that happens as well with cards is that there are many intermediaries between the end user to the crypto. All the card processing, the card issuer, the enabler, many companies within. If you can abstract those layers and start taking the middleman from between and being able to offer, I think that P2P services will be the most efficient on one side of the spectrum. I think that having real banking rails where the transaction cost is none or virtually none, it's just a liquidity cost and the FX cost of getting into crypto. So I think that, as Yanni said, every single time with more players coming in and the scale of the existing players growing so much is where efficiency comes to scale, and that's completely seen in the pricing and the FX and the volume and the fees that are transmitted to the end user.
Yeah, it sounds like there's some fees that we can get down over time with scale, and some fees that are just baked into the cost of the underlying domestic payment scheme that there's not really much that any of us in this room can do about. So, a lot of people in this room that I recognize are anchors themselves. Is there opportunity for anchors to work with one another? Are there any other anchors that you're working with today, or that, what are the dynamics of, different anchors working with one another?
I think that Settle and Wire are a great partner. We offer Argentina, Brazil as on-ramp services for them, and they were able to open that to their entire network. We are like a B2B2C, basically, or B2B2B2C, basically. We're also in conversations with different anchors as well, trying to provide our service to them and their service to us in the regions that we are not operating. I think there's a lot of room and opportunity for anchors to work together and collaborate in building a seamless and efficient interface between each other to be able to leverage all the connections, the rails, the infrastructure that everyone has built across the world, which it's impossible for one single partner to be able to develop those same rails across the globe.
And I think it's a great opportunity because only in this small room, I already see 3 companies with whom we're working as anchor with anchor. And the main point that we are speaking the same language and we have the same target. So, and only in this way we can really change the dynamics in payment world. So that's great. And thanks to Stellar for that.
Yeah, well, that's really this interoperability between partners on Stellar is very important to the Stellar Development Foundation. We spent a lot of time and energy on developing standards so that a sending anchor, a company that sends cross-border payments, offers the same API as any other sending anchor and vice versa for receivers, so that it's easy to work with all of the different anchors that you want without having to integrate a specific API each time.
You guys have also made it super easy with the SDK that just came out too.
That's right. Yeah. Nice plug. So, maybe some of you were in the room downstairs just immediately prior to this where Tomer announced Soroban and Sorobanathan and all of these funny words that we've come up with. What does the advent of smart contracts on Stellar mean for your businesses and how you work with Stellar?
I can start. Smart contracts are incredible. I think it's, Stellar's in a really unique position to launch this as well, because they're kind of doing the hard miles of like connecting end users from a lot of different geographies. Building the last mile is really, really challenging, right? So it's kind of like the chicken and egg problem. They're solving this massive problem of getting financial services and money to different people all over the planet by building this incredible anchor ecosystem on top of this protocol. And that's like phase one. And then phase two is like, okay, well, what other services can we provide? Can we do microloans? Can we do? And I think that smart contracts is a really incredible way of releasing into that ecosystem. So for anchors, it means, how do you provide payment services directly into smart contracts? And we do this. Wire does this outside of the Stellar ecosystem. We have we have a product called Smart Ramps, and it goes card directly into a smart contract. So bringing these like unique payment experiences and making it seamless for people to interact with smart contracts is definitely a new challenge for a lot of the anchors, but it's also a good opportunity as well to streamline the payment flows there, which are really exciting.
Absolutely. I think that the creation of smart contracts is going to bring so much innovation into the Stellar ecosystem. That's going to build so many new products, so many new companies are going to rise. And probably this point in time next year, maybe this room's going to be twice or three times as big of more companies starting to build within Stellar. And those, at the end of the day, always need a ramp, always need a method to start getting fiat or getting crypto into the rails. I see that's definitely gonna grow the ecosystem by a lot.
Yeah, so we're really excited about all the anchor partners that we've brought to the table, and honestly, we think that that's what differentiates Stellar quite a bit from the many other fantastic blockchains out there, which is its interconnectivity and just connectivity to the traditional banking system in a variety of payment methods, a variety of rails, including cash with MoneyGram, as I'm sure you've heard us talk about ad nauseum at this point. So I want to ask one more question before I turn it over to the audience. I think we have about 10 minutes for audience questions, so start thinking of anything that you are curious about. But let's talk about the future, looking forward. Where is this space heading? Where are payments heading? What are some headwinds or tailwinds that you're feeling in terms of cross-border payments or fiat on and off ramping?
I can start. So I think I mentioned this a couple minutes ago. I think that the future of where crypto is heading, where mass adoption is going to go, or where more retail users are going to come into the space is where they start transacting their own stablecoins, their own fiat currencies, not knowing there's a blockchain behind of it that it's moving their funds more efficiently. I think that there are many apps successfully creating this initially and are moving towards that. Users particularly might not be knowing that there's a blockchain behind it, but they know that they're sending funds basically for free on a very transparent ledger, and they can move fiat currency that are pegged to their own fiat basically through a very simple UI.
So my opinion is that even if we want to move fast and much more digital, there is still a regulator. And we really hope that since 2023, with the new European regulation MiCA, the rules of a game will be much more clear. And when you understand how to talk with regulator, so the dynamic can be much more faster. So I really hope that in one day, us and traditional institution will speak also the same languages. So
we're getting there.
That's what we are waiting for.
Yeah, I think the future is really interesting. So obviously there's going to be a lot more regulatory clarity. There's going to be, which is really positive. But if you kind of think about the past 5 to 10 or the past 20 years, really, billion-dollar businesses, like with the cheapening of the cost of just like actually launching a technology company, billion-dollar businesses have been able to like be created for a small subset of features. So like if you look at the whole SaaS model was created really, where people would take something off of Oracle and create $1 billion business. And I think what you're seeing now in kind of just technology and as a whole is that people are going to, over the next 5 years, the rebundling of services are going to be like very, very prominent. And so you're not going to have one feature related companies. And I think the same thing is going to happen in the crypto ecosystem where you're going to have all in one shop to actually build services and solutions. So I imagine a lot of the anchors will start providing more API-related services and start bundling different services, whether it's compliance, fraud, wallet services. And I think that trend is just going to continue over the next 10 years. We went really far to the left where you had like single SaaS-based companies be created, and now we're going all the way with bundling services, companies being created over the next 10 years, which is going to be fascinating.
Thank you. Any audience questions?
This is a question for Ioannis. Thank you very much for this talk, all of you, very interesting. I felt like very identified when you mentioned all the frustrating part about like shutting down when you want to go to a country and make an operation. Is anything that we need to expect from central banks or regulations or government needed for cryptocurrencies to open in countries, if exist, of course?
Yeah, I think the regulatory infrastructure is going to, I mean, there's a lot happening right now with CBDCs and in that sort of space. And there's been a lot more clarity. When we started, I mean, like, no one, like we went to, in 2013, we would go get a bank account and say that we're a crypto company, and they're like, cool, that's awesome. Like, and nobody knew what that was, right? And then like a year later in 2014, all our bank accounts got shut down. And then now from 2014 to where we are today, now there's tons of banking infrastructure, regulatory infrastructure to make it easy for people to actually launch crypto businesses, which is really exciting. So Allah's probably in a better position to talk about like maybe the Euro, kind of like the regulation that's happening here in Europe. But in the US, there's a lot of movement, and it's, especially with the SEC and CBDCs, it's going to, I think the next 2 years are a really interesting time period to navigate. But you know, we invest a lot of time and a lot of resources to make sure that we're fully compliant there, and try to abstract all that from our partners. As much as we can. We still have a lot of work to do, but that's like our pure vision. It's like, how do we keep everyone compliant that's building on top of Wire, and make sure that we actually do the hard miles there and being the most compliant that we can.
Hello. Okay, awesome. I guess this is for the other two. It's around stablecoins. So right now we have a landscape where most of the fiat-backed stablecoins are all US dollar tokens. And so my question is, do you see a world where other stablecoins grow and kind of take on a major role? Or in the case of both of your businesses, is it more niche use cases where you're able to use a stablecoin for your business purposes, but it's not necessarily going to be a major used token?
I could say that market needs a European stablecoin. And we definitively see that only with USDC or USDT, so it's not the way how we can be developed. But unfortunately, this European regulatory policy back and forth when you can go and you can't, so put a lot of constraints in our business. But we continue, and who told that to be a pioneer, it's an easy journey. So finally we will arrive to this point when it will be not only USD-based payments, but also we will have very strong European stablecoin, because now it's a time. So
I think that in our case in particular, if you are able to manage and do more efficient transactions or more efficient either cross-border payments or internal domestic transactions through a stablecoin that's prices out basically the other options of moving funds around, that's when people are willing and able to reduce their cost of moving funds around, and people choose that above local institutional rails. That's when the stablecoin makes sense. I think that most probably every single country in the world soon enough is going to either build their own through CBDCs or have companies developing some type of stablecoin, and if the efficiency of moving funds around is there compared to the current infrastructure, there's like an efficiency created right there. On your case, on the USDC side, the world is right now, every commodity is against USD. So it's more than obvious that it's the dominating currency right now in the world. But I see major currencies worldwide adopting this type of stablecoins.
Any other questions? All right, then I got one last question for you. Let's go quick answer style, popcorn style. You know, I mentioned all the credit cards that our butts are smashing right now. Are we still going to be sitting on those credit cards in 5 years from now? Or at the very least, are we still going to be using them as much as we use them today?
For me, no. Because Web3 and all this digitalization and development of the cryptocurrencies and stablecoins, I really believe that in 5 years we will use our smartphone like a neo-banking in your pocket. So, and by the way, it's a strategy of Tempo.
I think 5 years is a very short time. I think over the next 20 years, it will vastly look different. I mean, the Visa and MasterCard are investing pretty heavily. They understand in kind of the crypto ecosystem. You know, Visa's doing settlements in USDC right now. MasterCard has their own stable currency that they're coming out with, and PayPal's coming out with their own PUSD, their own stable currency. So I think what a lot of these like settlement networks and are going to look vastly different over the next 5 years, and they're making massive strides into that ecosystem. Over the next 20 years, perhaps. But yeah, time will tell.
And sorry, I guess also it depends on the technologies. Look, when iPhone arrives, within several months, the life of whole people changed. So I think it's just a question of readiness and a big push into the new era. So.
Yeah, I think partners like Visa, MasterCard, whenever they start doing actually the payouts in USDC, and when the user is actually the card they swipe is actually a validating transaction of using USDC to pay, and the merchant is getting paid USDC, and the card is just used for validating your identity or the connection. That's when it's going to use. I think that's where we're heading to, but the underlying assets and flow of funds will be on the blockchain.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining our panel. Thank you. Thanks for being here.